It was a Saturday evening when I stumbled upon the truth. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows in our living room, where the air was thick with the scent of dinner still lingering on the table. I was flipping through my phone, absent-mindedly scrolling through social media when a notification caught my eye, a message from a friend. He had sent me a photo, a candid shot of my wife, Clara, laughing with someone I had never seen before. The man was tall, with an air of confidence that came with being a fashion designer. I could tell he was someone important in the industry, but at that moment all I could focus on was the way Clara leaned into him, her head thrown back in laughter. It was a simple image, yet it was as if a dagger had pierced my heart. I felt my breath catch in my throat. I clicked on the photo to see it more clearly, and there it was, their intimacy, so easy and natural. My mind raced with questions. Who was he? Why was she with him? Had I been so blind? The questions spiraled, each one more painful than the last. The room felt like it was closing in on me, the walls echoing my disbelief. I confronted Clara that night. The moment she walked through the door, her face lit up with that familiar smile. It felt like a mask over a festering wound. I couldn't hold it in any longer. Who is this guy? I demanded, shoving the phone in her face. The joy on her face faded instantly, replaced by a look of horror. John, I can explain, she stammered, her voice shaking. I could see the guilt etched across her features, and yet there was a defiance in her eyes that stung. I didn't need her explanation. My heart raced, a mix of anger and betrayal surging through me. The reality of her infidelity settled like a stone in my stomach. I had loved her, trusted her, and this was how she repaid me. I felt a whirlwind of emotions crashing over me, rage, sadness, disbelief. How could she do this? I had always been there for her, celebrating her successes, comforting her during failures. Yet here she was, entwined with someone else. The image of her laughing with him replayed in my mind, taunting me with every second that passed. Was it worth it? I spat, my voice low and trembling with fury. Did you think I wouldn't find out? Did you think I wouldn't care? Her silence was deafening. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words never came. Instead, tears streamed down her cheeks, and it was then that I felt a flicker of something else. Sympathy, perhaps, but it was quickly extinguished by the overwhelming sense of betrayal. That night, as I lay in bed, the darkness wrapped around me like a shroud. I replayed every moment we had shared, every laugh, every kiss, and felt the sharp edge of their betrayal cut deeper. It was a cacophony of memories, twisted and tainted by the knowledge that she had chosen him over me. The pain was suffocating, but as I lay there, a new feeling began to bloom within me, a sense of determination. If she could betray me so easily, then I could do something about it. I envisioned the designer, the man who had taken my wife from me. His career was thriving, and I had to find a way to bring him down. I would make him suffer as I was suffering. And so, the seeds of revenge began to take root in my mind. In the days that followed, I found myself lost in a fog of sorrow and rage. I would sit in my office, staring blankly at my computer screen, the cursor blinking as if mocking me. The world outside continued to move forward, but I felt frozen in time, trapped in a cycle of betrayal and heartbreak. It was hard to reconcile the man I thought I knew with the reality that lay before me. Clara, my wife of 5 years, had shattered my trust in a matter of moments. As I reflected on our relationship, I began to sift through the signs I had missed, the subtle cues that now seemed glaringly obvious. Clara had always been ambitious. I admired her for it, but perhaps I had been too naive. She was a talented graphic designer, known for her creativity and flair. Her collaborations with various brands had put her on the map, and I had always been proud of her achievements. Yet, as her career soared, she had become more distant, often buried in her work and social obligations. I remembered the late nights when she would come home exhausted, her eyes heavy with fatigue. I had thought nothing of it then, attributing it to the demands of her job. But now, I wondered if those late nights had been spent with him, the designer who had swept her off her feet with his charm and success. I could almost hear the whispers of doubt in my mind, taunting me with every shared laugh and every intimate moment we had once cherished. The designer, Marcus Duval, was a name I had heard in passing. He was a rising star in the fashion world, known for his eccentric designs and high-profile clientele. I had never met him, but I had seen his work showcased at various events. Clara had mentioned him a few times, always in an admiring tone. I recalled her excitement when she received an invitation to one of his exclusive fashion shows. At the time, I had brushed it off, thinking it was just another networking opportunity. Little did I know that it was the beginning of a betrayal that would unravel my entire world. I found myself spiraling deeper into my thoughts, replaying moments in our marriage, our first date, our wedding day, the laughter we shared over mundane things. Those memories felt like a cruel joke now. The love that had once felt so solid was now an illusion, a facade that had crumbled away. I had given her my heart, and she had tossed it aside for someone with a glitzier lifestyle. As the days turned into weeks, the anger within me festered. I felt like a volcano on the brink of eruption, the lava of my emotions bubbling just beneath the surface. I was tormented by images of Clara and Marcus together, their laughter echoing in my mind like a haunting melody I couldn't escape. I had to do something. I couldn't let her betrayal go unpunished. I started to gather information about Marcus, piecing together a profile of the man who had taken my wife from me. I followed him on social media, scouring through his posts and the comments that accompanied them. He was adored by many, his designs celebrated and his persona idolized. There was something infuriating about the way people revered him, and it made my blood boil. I felt the fire of revenge igniting within me, fueling my determination to bring him down. I began to plot, envisioning how I could dismantle his career piece by piece. I knew I needed to be strategic. This wouldn't be a reckless act of vengeance. It had to be calculated, precise. I envisioned myself as a puppeteer pulling the strings from the shadows. But as I sat there, plotting my revenge, I couldn't help but feel a pang of doubt. Was I really willing to go through with this? Would destroying Marcus truly heal the wounds Clara had inflicted on me? I had loved her, and part of me still did, but the betrayal overshadowed any lingering affection. I wanted her to feel the pain I was experiencing, to understand the depth of her betrayal. With every passing day, I became more resolute. I would not let this go unanswered. I would make sure Marcus Duval's name became synonymous with failure and disgrace. The thought of it brought a twisted sense of satisfaction, a glimmer of hope in the darkness that had enveloped my life. I was ready to take action. The first step in my plan was to gather evidence. I needed something concrete, something that would shake the foundation of Marcus Duval. Career. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about making a statement, about showing Clara that I wouldn't just sit idly by while she shattered our lives for a fleeting affair. I needed to be meticulous, to ensure that every move I made was calculated and effective. I started by following Marcus more closely. I began attending events that he was known to frequent: fashion shows, gallery openings, charity galas. I blended into the crowd, appearing as just another admirer of his work, while secretly observing him. Each time I saw him, my blood boiled. He was charming, charismatic, and surrounded by people who idolized him. I felt like an outsider, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. At one of these events, I overheard a conversation between two fashion bloggers discussing Marcus's latest collection. They mentioned something that piqued my interest: rumors about his previous relationships and how they had ended in chaos. It was a small crack in his otherwise polished persona, and I realized I could exploit it. I needed to dig deeper into his past, to find the skeletons that could be the key to unraveling his empire. I spent nights researching, combing through articles, interviews, and social media posts. I discovered that Marcus had a history of tumultuous relationships with several women in the industry. Each breakup seemed to leave a trail of heartache and controversy. I collected screenshots of articles and comments that highlighted his questionable behavior, each piece of evidence adding fuel to the fire of my revenge. But I needed more than just rumors. I needed something that could be substantiated. I reached out to former colleagues and acquaintances of Marcus, posing as a curious admirer of his work. I asked pointed questions about his character and relationships, and while most were hesitant to speak ill of him, a few gave me the information I needed. They whispered tales of his arrogance, his manipulation, and the way he discarded people once they no longer served his purpose. With each new detail I collected, my plan began to take shape. I envisioned a scandal that would rock the fashion world. I would compile everything I had learned into a comprehensive dossier, complete with accounts from those who had been hurt by Marcus. I would present it to the press, ensuring that it would be impossible for him to escape the fallout. The moral dilemmas weighed heavily on me. Was I becoming the villain in this story? Was I just as bad as Marcus? I wrestled with these thoughts, but the pain of Clara's betrayal pushed me further down the path of revenge. I told myself that I was doing this not just for me, but for all the women he had hurt, for all the lives he had upended. I also began to leverage my own connections. I had friends in the media, people who respected my work and would listen to my story. I crafted a narrative that portrayed me as a victim, a husband wronged by a man who had no respect for the sanctity of marriage. It felt dirty to manipulate my friends in this way, but I couldn't stop myself. The thought of Marcus's downfall was intoxicating, and I was willing to do whatever it took to see it through. As I plotted, I also had to consider the potential backlash. What if Clara found out what I was doing? Would she confront me? Would she defend Marcus? The mere thought of her standing by him filled me with rage. I had to keep my plan under wraps to maintain my composure in front of her. I became adept at hiding my emotions, wearing the mask of the devoted husband while the storm inside me raged on. Finally, I decided on a timeline. I would release my findings just before the launch of Marcus's next collection, a high-profile event that would draw media attention. It was the perfect time to strike, to ensure that the fallout would be as devastating as possible. I could almost taste the sweet victory in my mouth, the satisfaction of watching his carefully constructed world crumble. The day approached, and the anticipation built inside me like a coiled spring. I felt powerful, like I was finally taking control of my life again. As I prepared to execute my plan, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was stepping into a dark abyss. But the thought of Marcus Duval's career ending, of Clara's realization of the consequences of her actions, kept me focused. I was ready. The day of Marcus Duval's collection launch had arrived, and I felt a mix of adrenaline and anxiety coursing through my veins. The venue was a lavish gallery downtown, adorned with bright lights and extravagant decorations. The air buzzed with excitement as fashion enthusiasts, influencers, and media personnel flooded in, each person eager to witness the unveiling of his latest designs. I arrived early, blending in with the crowd, my heart racing as I took in the scene around me. I had spent countless hours perfecting my plan, and now it was time to put it into action. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a reminder of the email I had prepared, the dossier filled with damning evidence against Marcus. I had compiled stories from his former lovers, testimonials from colleagues, and specific incidents that painted him as a manipulative monster. The weight of it felt heavy in my hands, but I knew I couldn't back down now. As the event kicked off, I watched Marcus from a distance, his confidence radiating as he greeted guests and posed for pictures. He was in his element, a star among stars, and I felt a surge of anger at the sight of him. The betrayal I had endured felt fresh, and the thought of him mingling with the very people I had once considered friends ignited a fire within me. I waited until the crowd was fully engrossed in the show, the lights dimmed and the music swelled. It was the perfect distraction. I slipped away to a quieter corner of the gallery, my heart pounding as I prepared to send the email to the media contacts I had lined up. I typed a short message explaining that I had information that would be of great interest regarding Marcus Duval and his questionable ethics. Just as I was about to hit send, a familiar voice interrupted my focus. Clara approached, her expression brightening as she spotted me. "John, I didn't know you were coming," she said, her tone light, but there was a hint of nervousness in her eyes. I forced a smile, masking the turmoil brewing inside me. "I wanted to see what all the fuss was about," I replied, trying to sound casual. I could feel the tension between us, a silent acknowledgement of our recent confrontation. "Isn't it amazing?" she continued, glancing at Marcus as he greeted another guest. He's really talented. I can't believe how far he's come." The pride in her voice stung, and I fought the urge to scoff. "Yeah, amazing," I muttered, my mind racing with how to navigate this conversation without revealing my intentions. Clara seemed oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. She was swept up in the glamour of the event, the allure of the fashion world that had captivated her. "Are you okay?" she asked, her brow furrowing slightly as she studied my face. There was genuine concern there, and for a moment I almost felt guilty. Almost. But the anger quickly returned, reminding me of the betrayal that had brought us to this point. "I'm fine," I replied curtly, my eyes darting back to the stage where Marcus was now speaking to the audience. "Just taking it all in." Clara nodded, but I could tell she sensed something was off. "You should go talk to him," she suggested, her voice hopeful. "He'd love to see you. You could get to know him better. He's really not what people say." I felt a surge of rage at her words. "Not what people say," I echoed, my voice low and controlled. "You mean not what you've been saying behind my back?" Her expression shifted, confusion and hurt mingling in her eyes. "John, that's not fair, you know." "It's not like that." I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to lash out. "Isn't it? You've been spending time with him, Clara. You've been lying to me." Before she could respond, I felt my phone buzz again. I glanced down and saw that I had received a reply. The media contact was interested in the information I had shared. My heart raced. It was time. "I have to go," I said abruptly, turning away from her. I needed to focus, to execute my plan without any distractions. I walked away, leaving Clara standing there, her expression a mixture of confusion and concern. I found a quiet corner and with shaking hands hit send on the email. I felt a rush of exhilaration mixed with dread as I watched the message disappear into the ether. I had done it. The wheels were in motion and there was no turning back now. As the event progressed, I found myself glancing at my phone every few minutes, waiting for a response. The anticipation was almost unbearable. I watched Marcus as he reveled in the attention, and the anger bubbled up inside me again. He was basking in the glory that I was about to shatter. The show concluded and applause erupted throughout the gallery. I could see Clara clapping enthusiastically, her eyes sparkling with admiration for Marcus. It was a sight that made my stomach churn. I knew I had to stay focused. The fallout would come soon enough. And then, as if on cue, my phone buzzed again. It was a notification from a news outlet. They had picked up the story. I felt a rush of adrenaline as I opened the link. The headline read, "Fashion designer Marcus Duval accused of manipulation and deceit, a closer look at his controversial past." It was happening. The first domino had fallen and I felt a twisted satisfaction swell within me. The repercussions would follow and I was ready to watch Marcus's world collapse. But as I stood there, a part of me wondered if this was the right thing to do. Would this truly bring me peace, or was it merely a descent into darkness? I pushed the thought aside. The night was still young and I was just getting started. The aftermath of my actions unfolded quickly. As the news broke, social media erupted and Marcus Duval name became synonymous with scandal. The article I had sent out detailed not just the allegations of manipulation and deceit, but also the personal accounts of women who had been hurt by him. The fashion community, once enamored with his talent, now buzzed with whispers of betrayal and outrage. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of control. I watched from the sidelines as Marcus's carefully constructed world began to crack. His admirers turned to critics, and the media, once eager to celebrate him, now savored the drama of his downfall. I had orchestrated this chaos, and I reveled in it, even as a small voice in my mind questioned the morality of my actions. Then, one evening, Clara confronted me. I had been preparing myself for this moment, but nothing could truly prepare me for her fury. I was sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through the latest updates on Marcus when she stormed in, her face flushed with anger. "John, what did you do?" she shouted, her voice trembling with a mix of rage and disbelief. The intensity of her gaze pierced through me. The woman I had once loved was now a force of nature, and I felt a flicker of fear. "I did what I had to do," I replied, trying to maintain my composure. "He hurt me, Clara, he hurt us." Clara crossed her arms, her expression shifting from anger to hurt. You think this is going to fix anything? You're destroying him. You're destroying everything. Everything. I echoed, incredulity lacing my tone. You think I'm the one who destroyed everything? You made that choice, Clara. You chose him over me. Her eyes widened, and for a moment I saw a glimmer of regret. I made a mistake. I was confused, but this is not the way to handle it. You're sinking to his level. I felt the weight of her words, but the anger inside me burned brighter. He took you from me. He made a mockery of our marriage, and you want me to just forget that, to forgive and forget. I can't do that. Clara's hands trembled as she ran them through her hair, frustration etched across her face. I never meant to hurt you, John. I was lost and I found myself in a terrible situation. But this, you're ruining lives. You're not the victim anymore. You're the villain in this story. Her words hit me like a slap. I had set out to take revenge, to make Marcus suffer, but now I was confronted with the reality of my actions. I had become the very thing I despised. Clara's anguish was palpable, and I could see the pain in her eyes, a reflection of the hurt I had inflicted on her with my choices. Maybe I am a villain, I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. But I won't stand by and let him take everything from me. I won't let him take you without consequences. Clara took a step back, her expression softening for a brief moment before hardening again. You think this will fix our marriage? You think I'll come back to you because you've ruined him? I don't even know if I want to be with you anymore, John. You've changed. Her words cut deeper than I expected, and I felt the ground beneath me shift. So what? You're going to side with him? After everything? No, she snapped, frustration boiling over. I'm not siding with anyone. I'm trying to make sense of this nightmare you've created. I can't believe you would stoop so low. We stood there, the air thick with tension, both of us grappling with the fallout of my actions. I could see that Clara was torn, her heart caught between the man she had betrayed and the chaos I had unleashed. Do you even care what this does to me? I asked, my voice shaking. To us. I care, John, she replied, her voice softer now. But you need to understand that revenge won't heal the wounds we have. It will only create more pain. You're losing yourself in this madness. Her words resonated, and I felt the truth in them. I had been so consumed by anger and betrayal that I had lost sight of the love we once shared. The thought of Clara leaving me, of losing her entirely, sent a wave of panic through me. In that moment, I realized that perhaps I had gone too far. The designer's downfall was one thing, but the cost to my marriage was becoming unbearable. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I don't want to lose you, Clara, but I can't just forget what he did. Then let's figure this out together, she said, her voice trembling. But you need to stop this. You need to stop the vendetta before it consumes you completely. I felt a flicker of hope at her words, a desire to reclaim what we had lost, but the path ahead was murky. Could I truly let go of the revenge that had defined my actions for so long? As we stood there, the weight of our choices hung heavily in the air. I had a choice to make: continue down this path of destruction or try to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. But before I could respond, my phone buzzed again, jolting me back to the reality of the situation. It was a notification from a news outlet. I opened it and my heart sank. Marcus Duval responds to allegations, claims he's the victim of a malicious attack. The battle was far from over. The days that followed Marcus's response to the allegations were a whirlwind of chaos. The media frenzy escalated, with articles dissecting every angle of the situation, every detail of my life and Clara's. Marcus had positioned himself as the victim, painting me as an envious husband trying to tarnish his name out of spite. I watched as the narrative shifted, and the sympathy that had once flowed in my favor began to wane. The fashion world rallied behind him, eager to protect their star, and I felt the walls closing in. Clara and I were caught in the crossfire of this public spectacle, and the tension between us grew thicker. She became my confidant one moment, urging me to step back and reconsider my actions, and the next, she was a stranger, angry at the monster I was becoming. My heart ached as I watched her struggle, torn between her loyalty to me and the guilt of her infidelity. I found myself spiraling further into the darkness, consumed by the desire for revenge that had initially felt so empowering. I had thought that ruining Marcus would bring me peace, but instead, it had only deepened the rift between Clara and me. The more I focused on the destruction of his career, the more I lost sight of my own humanity. One evening, after a particularly heated argument with Clara about the latest developments, I found myself alone in our living room, staring blankly at the wall. I felt exhausted, not just from the stress of the situation, but from the weight of my choices. It was then that I realized I was losing not just her, but myself in this vendetta. The anger that had fueled me was now a heavy burden, and I knew I needed to make a decision. The next morning, I woke up with a newfound clarity. I had to confront the reality of my situation. I could continue down this path of revenge, dragging both of us into a deeper abyss, or I could choose to step back and reclaim my life. I wanted to heal, not just for myself, but for Clara and the love we once shared. I decided to reach out to Marcus. It was a bold move, and part of me felt like I was betraying my own cause, but I needed to hear him out. I wanted to understand why he had done this, why he had crossed a line that shattered my life. I sent him a message, asking for a meeting, and to my surprise, he agreed. When I walked into the cafe where we had arranged to meet, I was met with the sight of him sitting at a table looking as confident as ever. The charm that had drawn Clara to him was evident, but beneath it, I could see the tension in his posture, the weariness in his eyes. "John," he greeted me, his voice smooth, yet there was a hint of wariness. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Neither did I replied, my heart pounding. "But I think we need to talk." As we sat across from each other, the weight of our shared history hung in the air. I could feel the anger bubbling beneath the surface, but I fought to keep my emotions in check. "You know what you did to my marriage," I began, my voice firm. "You took advantage of Clara's vulnerabilities. You betrayed not just me, but her as well." Marcus leaned back in his chair, a flicker of guilt crossing his face. "I know, and I regret it, but I'm not the villain in this story either, John. Clara made her choices. I didn't force her." His words stung, but I couldn't deny the truth. In them, Clara had made choices, but his influence had played a significant role. "That doesn't excuse your actions," I shot back. "You could have walked away, but you didn't." "I didn't," he admitted, his voice softening. "But I never intended for it to go this far. I didn't realize how deep her feelings for you were until everything exploded. I never wanted to hurt you." I felt a flicker of understanding, but it was quickly overshadowed by the pain of betrayal. "And yet here we are," I said, frustration lacing my tone. "You've ruined everything." "Have I?" he asked, leaning forward. "Or have you? You're the one who chose to wage war instead of trying to heal. You've let this consume you, John. Is this really who you want to be?" His words struck a chord, and I felt the weight of my actions crashing down on me. I had let revenge dictate my choices, and in doing so, I had lost sight of the man I once was. I didn't know how else to respond. I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I thought ruining you would bring me peace." "Revenge rarely does," Marcus replied. "It only leads to more pain. I know that now. I've been through my own share of heartbreak. I've hurt people, and I'm not proud of it, but I'm trying to make amends." The sincerity in his voice caught me off guard. I realized that perhaps we were both victims in this twisted web of betrayal. "What do you propose?" I asked, my voice steadier now. "Let's end this," he said simply. "Leave the past behind. Focus on healing for both of us." I considered his words, feeling the weight of my anger begin to lift. "You want to walk away from this?" I asked incredulously. "Why not?" he replied. "We can't change what happened, but we can choose how we move forward. You have a chance to rebuild your life, John. Don't waste it on me." After a long pause, I nodded slowly. "You're right. I've lost sight of what truly matters." We shook hands, and in that moment I felt a sense of closure wash over me. It would take time to heal, but I was ready to face the future, without the burden of revenge weighing me down. When I returned home, Clara was waiting for me, her expression a mix of anxiety and hope. "What happened?" she asked, her voice trembling. I took a deep breath, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. "I talked to Marcus. I think we need to let go of the past." Her eyes widened, and for a moment I saw a flicker of relief. "You mean it? You're willing to forgive?" "It's not about forgiveness right now," I explained. "It's about moving forward. I want to work on us, Clara, if you're willing to try." Tears brimmed in her eyes, but this time they were not tears of sadness. I want that too, John, I really do. In that moment, I felt a spark of hope. The road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but I was ready to walk it with her. As I wrapped my arms around Clara, I realized that true healing begins with understanding, not revenge. I had learned that love, while fragile, could endure even the harshest storms if nurtured with honesty and compassion. And as we held each other, I knew that the journey of rebuilding our lives together had just begun. The cycle of pain had ended, and a new chapter was waiting to unfold.